Those who want to save their life will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake and the gospel will save it. What does it look like to lose your life for my sake and for the gospel? Dan Clark shares a story with us that helps to shed some light on that issue. Once when I was a teenager, my father and I were standing in line to buy tickets to go to the circus. Finally, there was only one family between us and the ticket counter. And this family made a big impression on me. There were 8 children, all probably under the age of 12. You could tell the family didn't have a lot of money. Their clothes were not expensive, but they were clean. The children were well behaved, all of them, standing in line, 2 by 2, behind their parents and holding hands. And they were excitedly jabbering about the clowns and the elephants and the other acts that they would see that night in the circus. One could sense that they had never been to a circus before. It promised to be the highlight of their young lives. The father and mother were at the head of the pack, standing as proud as they could be. Mother was holding her husband's hand and looking up as if to say to him, "You're my knight in shining armor." And he was smiling and basking with pride and looking at her as if to reply, "You got that right." The ticket lady asked the father how many tickets he wanted. And he proudly responded, "Please let me buy 8 children's tickets and 2 adult tickets so I can take my family to the circus." The ticket lady quoted him the price. The man's wife let go of his hand. Her head dropped down. The man's lip began to quiver. The father leaned a little closer to the ticket lady and asked, "How much did you say the tickets were?" The ticket lady quoted the price again. The man didn't have enough money to pay for the tickets. How was he supposed to turn and tell his 8 kids that he didn't have enough money to take them to the circus? Seeing what was going on, my dad put his hand in his pocket, pulled out a $20 bill, and dropped it on the ground. My father then reached down, picked up the bill, tapped the man on the shoulder, and said, "Excuse me, sir, this just fell out of your pocket." The man knew what was going on. He wasn't begging for a handout, but certainly appreciated the help in a desperate and heartbreaking and embarrassing situation. He looked straight into my dad's eyes and took my dad's hand with both his, squeezed tightly onto the $20 bill, and with his lip quivering and a tear streaming down his cheek, he replied, "Thank you, sir. This really means a lot to me and my family." My father and I went back to the car. We didn't go to the circus that night. We didn't go to the circus because we didn't have enough money, but we didn't go without. Sometimes when we hear things like today's gospel, we start to think it's just too hard to live like Jesus is telling us to live. It's okay for people like Mother Teresa or the saints or the apostles to lose their life for the gospel's sake. They have a special relationship with God, so they can save their lives by losing their life. But the rest of us just aren't quite able to do things like that. So what does someone do who loses their life for Jesus? Too often we think that literally following the way of Jesus is just too difficult for us to keep up with. It's easy to get this whole issue of salvation confused at this point and backwards. When we read the gospel about saving your life and losing it, we start to think that we need to do lots of good things to be saved. We think that we need to lose our lives in service and good deeds to earn eternal rewards. Jesus reminds us again and again and again in the Gospels that salvation is a gift. It does not need to be earned by good works. We lose our life in service to others as a logical response to God's grace, not in order to earn that grace. Living as a child of the kingdom of God results in a very different behavior than the behavior of the world. This radical approach to life is only possible when we get in touch with what it means to live as a child of God. Eugene Peterson, writing in his work, The Message, says this: "You are subjects of the kingdom. Now live like that. Live out your God-given, God-created identity. Live out your God-given identity by living generously." We're used to hearing the phrase, "give generously," but when's the last time somebody suggested that you live generously? And what does it mean to live generously? Living generously is reflected by what we do for others. Dan Clark's father provides us with an example of living generously. Too often we're reluctant in our feeble efforts to forgive. Johnny was very upset with his brother. And before he said his prayers that night, Johnny's mother came in and tried to talk him into forgiving his brother for something he'd done earlier in the day. But Johnny was not in a forgiving mood. "No, ma'am, I will not forgive him," he said. And mother tried every one of her mother variety ways to manipulate him into doing what she wanted him to do. Finally, she said, "What if your brother dies tonight? How would you feel if you knew that you hadn't forgiven him?" And so Johnny finally gave up, or at least so it seemed. "All right," he said, "I'll forgive him. But if that sucker's alive in the morning, I'm going to get him for sure." Losing your life doesn't always involve individuals. Sometimes groups of people can get together and live in that spirit. Dr. Wayne Dwyer, in his book, The Power of Intention, shares an example of a mountaintop experience from a baseball field in New York City. The story is called Reaching Out to God's Perfection, and its author is anonymous. I'd like to share that story with you this morning. In Brooklyn, New York, Cush is a school that caters to learning disabled kids. Some children remain in Cush for their entire school career, while others end up being mainstreamed into conventional schools. At a Cush fundraising dinner, the father of one of the students delivered a speech that would never be forgotten by all who attended that night. After extolling the school and its dedicated staff, he cried out, "Where is the perfection in my son Shia? Everything God does is done with perfection, but my child cannot understand things as other children do. My child cannot remember facts and figures as other children do. Where is God's perfection in that?" The audience was shocked. The question pained the father, and the pain of the father's anguish stilled the audience to a silence. "I believe," the father answered, "when God brings a child like this into the world, the perfection that he seeks is in the way people react to this kind of child." And then he told the following story about his son Shia. One afternoon, Shia and his father walked past a park where some boys Shia knew were playing baseball. Shia asked, "Do you think they let me play?" Shia's father knew that his son was not in the least athletic, and that most boys would not want him on their team. But Shia's father understood that if his son was chosen to be able to play, it would give him a tremendous sense of self-confidence. Shia's father approached one of the boys in the field and asked if Shia could play. The boy looked around for guidance from his other teammates, but he got none, and so he took it on himself. And he said, "We're losing by 6 runs. The game's in the 8th inning. I guess he can be on our team. If we get a chance to bat again, we'll even let him bat." Shia's father was ecstatic. As Shia smiled broadly, Shia took hold was told to put on a glove and go out and play center field. In the bottom of the 8th inning, Shia's team scored a few runs, but still were behind by 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning. Shia's team scored again, and now, with 2 outs and the bases loaded, with a potential winning run on base, Shia was scheduled to come up to bat. Would they really let him bat at this juncture and give away their chance to win the game that day? Surprisingly, Shia was given a chance to bat. Everyone knew that it was all but impossible for him to get a hit because Shia didn't even know how to hold a bat, let alone get a hit with it. However, as Shia stepped up to the plate, the pitcher moved a few steps closer, lobbed the ball in softly so Shia could at least make some contact. The first pitch came in, and Shia swung totally clumsily and missed. One of Shia's teammates came up, and together with Shia, he held the bat and faced the pitcher, waiting for the next pitch. The pitcher again took a couple steps forward, tossed the ball softly toward Shia, and the pitch came in, and Shia and his teammates swung. And the hit was a slow ground ball back to the pitcher. The pitcher picked up the soft grounder and could easily have thrown the ball to first base. Shia would have been out, and the game would have been over. Instead, the pitcher picked up the ball and threw it on a long arc into right field, far beyond the first baseman's head. Everyone started yelling, "Run, Shia, run! Run to first base!" Shia never in his life had run to first base. He scampered down the baseline, wide-eyed and startled. By the time he reached first base, the right fielder had picked up the ball. He could easily have thrown the ball into second base, who would tag Shia out, and that would end the game. But the right fielder also understood what the pitcher's intentions were. And so he picked up the ball and threw it high over the third baseman's head into the grandstand. Everyone yelled, "Run, Shia, run to second." Shia ran toward the base, and as the runners ahead of him deliriously circled the bases toward home. As Shia reached second base, the opposing shortstop ran to him, turned him in the direction of third base, and said, "Run to third." Shia rounded third, and the boys from both teams ran behind him, screaming and yelling, "Shia, run home." Shia ran home and stepped on home plate, and all 18 boys lifted him on their shoulders and made him the hero as he had just hit a grand slam home run and won the game for his team. That day, said the father softly, with tears rolling down his cheeks, those 18 boys reached their level of God's perfection. The kingdom of heaven does not operate like the kingdom of this world. How will we know when we see God's kingdom? We will know when anger results in reconciliation rather than retaliation. We'll know when enemies are overcome by love rather than violence. We will know when tears of loss and grief turn into joy and hope. We'll know when shame turns into acceptance. We will know when we look in the face of a brother or sister who is clearly different than ourselves and see in that face the face of God. We will know when we can give money to the beggar on the street corner and not demand that that person prove that they are worthy of the money we're given. When we see these things in our own behavior and those around us, we will know that God's reign is present. St. Augustine said to his people while he was presiding over the Eucharist, "Receive who you are and become what you have received in the act of the Eucharist. You are God's beloved child. Go out this week and be who you are."